good.
I call this meeting to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of Nishnawbe, Ottawa, and Mississauga peoples. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby approves the agenda for December 19th, 2023 budget meeting as presented. May I have a mover? Councillor Whitfield, seconder. Councillor McBurney.
Question, Reeve,
Yes.
regarding the agenda. Carson was able to answer one of my concerns. Another one is a process question when we do come down to the actual budget part. I'm a little concerned on how we approach it. Like, I've got, and probably others have too, a lot of questions, a lot of thoughts about maybe where we should go. And some of them phoning ahead to talking to Chris ahead of time makes no sense. It's got to be done here. And for the 23 budget, I had a lot of questions. You answered some, you weren't away for some. And so I left, and things that I had in mind that we need changes, ignored. And so I've got a bad taste in my mouth regarding the process, so I'm coming in sensitive, okay?
Yeah.
And I want to know that, like, you know, do we make 20 amendments? We can't. Don't we have a maximum of 3? Like, how do we deal with things that we'd like changed?
Well, I'm just going to turn it over to our CAO. He'll just do a
Okay.
preamble before, please, and I'd just like to carry on. So did I have a mover and a seconder? I did.
Your
Oh.
movers, Councillor Whitfield, and your seconders, Councillor
But I
McBurney.
think the question, Reeve, is if we need to make an amendment to the agenda, right?
Question is, how do we deal with our concerns? Do we make amendments to the budget process as we get to it, of which there could be many, like, which would be undaunting? So I just want to know how can we just talk about it? Do we need, can we have consensus if we want to make a change to something in particular, to one of the listings perhaps? If you know, I have a problem with one, and do we get a consensus and it gets changed? How do we do it?
Through your worship, to answer Councillor Palmer's question, so any direction you want to provide needs to be through a majority vote of council. So the way the proposed motions are set up, it basically deals with items in four different topics. So your first item there is your donations for 2024, right? So in the PowerPoint presentation that the CAO and Director Towns are going to present, it includes all those donations. So at that time, you would want to provide any direction that you feel the need to provide on those donations. Your next one is your capital listing. So in the slide deck, they have a list of the capital projects that are P1, P2, and P3. Direction you're providing is not to adopt that capital listing at this time. It's to provide any changes you want to see to be included in version 2 of the budget, which will be presented at our January 12th meeting. So you're not setting everything in stone, you're providing that direction. And again, it's completely within the discretion of council of whether you want to do that in one motion or whether you want to do that in multiple motions. Really, that's, I guess, up to the chair and up to you as council of whether you want to separate items out. But that's the second one. The third one is your operating listing. And again, anything you want to see amendments made to that operating listing based on the decision listing that you'll get presented to you, you can provide those at that time. And then your fourth one is the pre-budget approval requests. So those are the two projects that are time sensitive in nature. So in order to continue those projects, basically staff are seeking pre-budget approval to approve those. So anything beyond those two pre-budget approval requests, really anything else is just coming back in version 2 of the budget. But as it relates to the operating and capital motions there, they are designed to be have the potential to be amended. So in those motions, you would just adopt it, or you would accept it as amended. to include the following amendments, and then whatever council wants to see fit. But
Okay, we're fine with that then, gentlemen?
Well, we'll see
See how
when
it-
we get
okay.
to it, I guess.
Okay, so I have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? Carried. Okay, disclosure of pecuniary interests. Seeing none. I'd just like to begin by welcoming each one here today. I know we have a person out in the gallery. Thank you. And I just appreciate the work that the staff put into this budget. I like the priority list. 1, 2, and 3, that was asked for by council, and it was there. Appreciate that very much. And as we go through the recommendations for staffing and operating decision listings, let's have good dialogue with those presenting the budget. And as we see, it was a 3.3 budget for the 24 budget, and we asked for that in our request to the for our input that were given to staff. And I speaking personally, I really appreciate the effort that was put into this, and thank you very much for that. So at this time, I'm just going to turn it over to our CAO and our treasurer, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Reeve. Members of council, good morning. We are here today to present to you the first draft of the 2024 operating capital budgets. In November, CAO Evans had presented a new approach to the budget presentation. Sure, thank you. So this included a decision listing through another mention of council, a priority listing for capital projects, just to assist with the decision-making process and a priority listing. So this is what staff have come up with. This approach is based on a decision listing and accounts for every budget or policy change. It provides full disclosure of issues addressed within the numbers. It is framed as a yes or no decision with budgetary impacts, and it provides short narrative and serves as an audit trail, which will help set the agenda and the priorities for the 2024 year. During the preparation of this 2024 draft budget, staff have incorporated the required resources to provide the service levels as established by council. Staff have evaluated and are recommending operational changes to ensure efficient use of all available resources. Staff have incorporated council-approved user pay options, and staff have reviewed the goals and objectives and action items within the approved 2024 to 2027 strategic plan. During this budget process, staff have used the actuals from previous years to help develop this budget. It accounts for the anomalies when reviewing the actuals, such as staff vacancies. The cost to implement previous council decisions are incorporated into the budget. For an example, the Blythe Campground. Savings used to offset new demands on the budget are included, such as inflation. It's good to note that all little savings add up. Reserve and reserve funds have been used to offset capital projects, and consideration has been taken into the 2024 fees and charges bylaw. The roles of each one of us here in the room today: council are to make decisions and provide direction to staff. Staff is to prepare the budget, detail, and inform of budget changes. So this first draft of the 2024 budget summary is presented to you. We are requesting a total levy of $7.479 million. This request accounts for $17.6 million in operating expenses, of which $3.4 million are for capital projects, and there is $1.6 recommended for transfers to capital reserves. These expenses are offset by $10.1 million in general municipal level revenues, which also includes other levels of funding such as your OMPF, your Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, your CCBF, Community Wellbeing Fund, formerly known as gas tax, and your OSIF, Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. This year, staff are seeking an additional $240,000 or a 3.33% levy increase from the approved 2023 budget. This slide here shows the direct impact to each of the wards based on an average assessment for each of the tax classes. So for an example, a $311,000 commercial property in Wingham would see a monthly increase of $6.13 per month. A residential in, say, East Wawanosh at the $199,700 would see an increase of $5.71 per month. So during the capital decision listing, staff have proposed priority 1, priority 2, and priority 3 capital projects. Please keep in mind these are staff's recommendations. So this slide here shows a total of 17, I believe, capital projects, a significant number for the Westcast complex, daycare emergency backup generator, 2 pieces of fleet for public works, some major road maintenance on 6 roads, and an additional 6 new LED streetlights. This total budget, priority 1 capital project request comes in at $3.4 million, in which 3.2 are recommended to come from reserves and 189,000 from taxation.
Question, Rafe?
Yes, go ahead.
I was kind of hoping you would mention that, and I know it might throw you off, Chris, but it's important to us that we're able to ask questions after each slide, if we have any, because then we don't lose them, right? And I know it will throw you off, sorry about that. And I wanted to say right up front, thank you very much for the line by line. The weeds, it was very helpful, got a lot of questions out of them. So I have a question about the Westcast emergency generator for $340. That's a lot of money for a generator. Do you know, like, is it full wiring involved to the building? Like, can you break that down a little bit?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, can I get Director Fritney up here, please, to speak to this question?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Palmer. So this is a quote we received for this generator. It's a backup standby backup generator that will support the Westcast facility in becoming the heating and cooling center that we really need for the community. And we do have a grant application in for $50,000 to help support this project, but it does include all the wiring, and it includes an automatic transfer switch, and based on a professional's assessment, this is the quote we got for a Summers generator.
Can you get other quotes?
Certainly we can, through your brief effort to Councillor Palmer, certainly we can get further quotes on it. We used a local contractor to get the quote we do have, and we put that in as a guiding document for this proposal.
Thank you.
Reeve?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor.
It's a question on Director Furtney. Is the Westcast Center used as a warming center in case of emergencies?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Van Henderson, yes, ma'am, it is. But this new it does not have a backup generator right now. There is a portable one we can bring in, but we have it currently tied to one of the wells in Wingham. So really to make the Westcast Center more operational for these kinds of emergencies, we've thought about bringing this standby generator as a necessity for the community.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Wright?
So just a question about the Mill Street project in Blythe. So I mean, it's a big project, so I'm just want to get some background on, why we're doing this project as opposed to, other streets. What kind of makes this top of the list?
Through your brief effort to Councillor Wright. This street has been on the books for a number of years. It's certainly part of our capital asset management plan. It's really at the top of the list. This is only a portion of that street that needs to be done. The water line's fine, but the sanitary desperately needs to be redone. And the quote for the 5 blocks, which is what we actually need, was around $5.5 million. So we thought we would do at least the 2 blocks to get us closer to what we need in the immediate future. And this includes all the design and engineering, project management, project administration, as well as the actual construction work. And this is an estimate brought to us by our local engineering firm that we use for these kinds of projects.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no more, we'll carry on, Mr. Towns.
Sorry, one more. So, so the house and dam doesn't show up on this list. Does that not have, should it not be on this list? Like, should that not have, money off last year's budget not gone into reserve and then out of reserve, but it shows up on the list for this year?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to answer Councillor Wright's question. These are proposed projects, new projects for 2024. The House and Dam was an approved project in the 2023 capital budget. All those funds were used, approved by council to be used from reserve funds, which were already in reserve funds, so there is no transfer required until the project is actually undertaken and or completed. And when we transfer from reserve funds, we only use up to the council approved amount, but if it's less than that, we only actually transfer the exact amount. So for example, if it's $1 million, it comes in at 900,000, we only physically transfer the 900,000 and the remaining funds remain within that reserve.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for your questions, Council. This next slide here is what staff are bringing forward as priority 2 number projects for Council's consideration. These are based on a timeline and a staff's perspective of priority. So that in here we have a 1-ton truck, the FE Medill pedestrian crossing, Catherine Street sanitary, skateboard replacement refurbishing, Westcast tools and organization, Wingham welcome sign refurbishment, Riverside Park master plan and refurbishment, and the Blythe welcome sign removal and replacement.
So I think, Director Towns, I think for council's benefit, it's important to note that from a budgetary perspective, in terms of that 3.3%, that includes the priority 1 projects that you've already seen. None of these projects, priority 2 or priority 3 at this time, are incorporated into the draft budget. If council wished to proceed with these projects, they would be in addition to what is already in the priority 1. So at that point, if you decide to move some of these priority 2 projects, which you're certainly welcome to do so, into priority 1, you can certainly do that. If you don't take anything out of that priority 1 list, your budget goes up. So I think it's just important to understand that priority 2 and 3 projects at this time are not incorporated into the draft budget. And the draft budget currently sits at that 3.3%. So just for council's information, to make sure everybody has a clear understanding.
Thank you. Through you, Reeve, are there any questions on the priority 2 capital projects as presented?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Towns. I'm just looking at the Riverside Park Master Plan. The way I thought it was, I see it's and refurbishment. I just thought with the work that's going to be going on down the dam, I'm just wondering, is there any way that even if we could get the, if council would be in favor of asking for the master plan, I think it was 5,000. And the reason why I'm asking this, council, is that there's the people that work on the trail committee, they'd love to do some work there, but until we can do the master plan, they don't really want to do anything. And I'm just bringing that forward, that it would probably be $5,000 for that, the gentleman that was willing to come in and do it. He did it 30 years ago, and I don't want to stall the meeting at all, so I'll just leave that in there. I'm just wondering if we could put 5,000 to get the park master plan, if you'd consider that or not. Thank you.
Reeve?
Yes.
Yeah, through you, Reeve, to to Director Towns. The tennis court pickleball, now, do we have some money in reserves for that? Right, in tennis courts of 60, do we?
Correct. Through you, you are correct, Councilor Palmer.
And then they have a grant, the group has a grant for 60, right? Not a grant, it's through the Vance Fund.
Yeah, well, that 60,000, maybe we could ask Director Furtney to come forward and talk on that, please.
I guess my thoughts are, there's 120,000 of their need, 170. Do we know that that is the need, Director? And where I'm going with this is, can anything get started without us putting more taxation money in? Because they want to fundraise and things like that, so they're not going to get another Vance Fund this year, right?
Right.
So, or for next year. So, is there a way of it starting, the process starting, thinking about the fundraising?
Excuse me, through you, Reeve Heffer to Councillor Palmer. So currently, we have the 60,000 from the Vance Fund, folks.
Oh, that's part of it.
That's part.
Oh, okay.
We do not have any further funds for this project. When we went to tender back last spring, the total for the 3 courts, which are all connected, was 230,000. So this is what I'm suggesting with the Priority 3 project. It wasn't that it wasn't important, it was just that it was a new project to the municipality, a new asset. That's why it fell into the Priority 3 listing. The $60,000 we are mandated to use up this year as a minimum, and we can do some fencing and some further patchwork, but because the courts are all connected, for us to do any kind of major refurbishment would mean that you'd only be doing a section of the bigger project, and for the project, it probably would make more sense to do any major work all at the same time as opposed to do it in chunks.
Just worried about the funds being taken.
And we're very appreciative to the Vance Fund folks for considering our application for the remainder. They made a hard decision to go a different direction, and we would certainly respect that. But we would, in order to do this project to its fullest and bring us all up to par, we really do require the additional 170,000 to complete the project as a whole.
Okay, thanks.
And Deputy Reeve, you had your hand up, please?
Yeah, through a question, are we pulling individual pieces out for discussion? I have thought process on the tennis court portion. It's never come through for any evaluation by council, but if we want to do that at this time, I'm prepared to talk on this subject.
Well, so through your worship, my recommendation is that if we've made our way through the capital, it's your call of whether you want to have that full discussion on capital and deal with that motion, or whether you want to continue to go through the operating so that you have a full sense of what your budget is. But it looks like Director Town says he's got one more slide related to that. But completely your call as council of what you want to do. Anything that you guys have, you as council have been noting as potential amendments, I've been making note of it, and ultimately you can have that discussion when you consider your motion for direction you want to provide on your capital listing.
Yeah, Reeve? My thought here, it was just a high-level little talk about, okay, why is it there? What can we do with it? Can we make it, can we move on? We've got some money, blah, blah, blah. That's it. I don't want to, personally, I'm not into, it's time to discuss it in detail. No, I wasn't there. And hopefully the Deputy Reeve understands that that's all I was thinking in any of these other priorities, 2 or 3.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Were there any other things here? Go ahead, Director Towns, please.
Thank you, Reeve. I do have one more priority slide, priority 3 for 2024 capital projects. We have paving of the Town Hill parking lot, an asphalt hot crack sealer, a digital sign at the Blythe Arena, soccer field at the Blythe Campground, Westcast tilt trucks, Westcast front sign repair or refurbishment, and then as the tennis and pickleball courts.
Okay. Are there any other comments that anybody wanted to bring up at this time? Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Towns.
Okay, thank you.
So you want to go on this one?
Sure, I can.
Okay, thank you.
So just in terms of, from a staff's perspective, moving forward, we've looked at our staffing, and so through the next, I believe, 3 slides, we've gone through what our existing staff level is as of 2023. And then in terms of, we're putting forward considerations for 2024, and the appropriate department head can speak to the proposed changes from 2023 to 2024. But so just in terms of the Office of the CAO, which includes economic development, there is a proposal there to add 1 summer student to assist the communication coordinator with marketing. But the other objective with this as well is to expose youth to local government, to get some youth engaged in local government, expose them to government careers. So that's one aspect. And then the other staffing there, and we've discussed this previously, is in terms of, as you're aware, we're moving forward with the museum deaccessioning project. We hired 2 temporary contract individuals who started with us in May of this year. It's going to extend into 2024. So the proposal is to extend those contracts into 2024, but in doing so, we'll monitor the project as we go along. So we'll do a 6-month and then another 2 months and whatever it is, so that we can ensure that that project gets completed in 2024. In terms of the clerk's department, right now, again, we have 2 contract records management assistants. You know, the proposal is to reduce the records management contract assistants from 2 to 1. If council wished to continue with both positions, that certainly would assist with that particular project. But in terms of continuing with our Laserfiche, electronic Laserfiche project, and this has been incorporated into the existing draft budget, so that's incorporated within that 3.3%.
Okay.
So you'll see in that case, for example, it's approximately budget from 2023 to 2024 goes down by approximately 60,000. And in terms of our records management assistants and the summer student, it adds 114 to the budget.
So on that page, were there any input from council? Is your hand up? Okay, I thought your hand was up. Okay. Councillor Palmer, please.
Thank you, Reeve. This is we need, at some point, we need to discuss positions, like the ACDev officer. Do we need a person right now, a new person right now, as well as having the engagement coordinator? Our previous one left us in mighty fine shape with some ideas that he had and he's given to us. You know, do we need it? This is where we need to have a discussion, and I'd like to know, this is where I'm lost in our process. When can we have this discussion? Because it's budget time, for heaven's sakes. And, you know, do we need, I know, talking about youth, but we've spent $589,000 plus another 200,000-ish on staffing for this year. Like, that blows my mind. That's including COLA and wage increases, merit increases, I guess. that's a ton of money. That's more than we've ever, in all our term, it's never been that high in the previous term. So to hire another student, like to hire a student, like the idea's nice, but I just can't find myself doing that because we don't have the money. You know, I see the 3.3% levy increase, that's great, but I'm not going to be just taking down that garden path thinking that, oh, that's great, let's vote for everything that we see. No, I want to know how we got there and what can we do to even reduce it. And this is, when can we talk about this?
So, through your worship, I think the easiest way to go about this is similar to the approach that the Reeve just used, where the things you know that you want to flag, I will take note of those, and then you can have your discussion after we kind of get through those slides. So, for example, the Reeve basically said he's hoping council will consider the inclusion of the Riverside Park Master Plan. So if there's things you want council to consider adding or removing as we go along, I would just say flag those. I will take note of them, and then we can have that discussion kind of after you go through the slides, and then that will kind of dictate what your motions look like. I think is probably the easiest way to go about it. So just kind of flag it for council at this point, and then once council's ready to have that discussion on the entire operating decision listing or the entire capital decision listing, then we'll have that
Like
discussion.
verbalize it to you right now that that's something I'd,
Yep, I would say similar to the way the Reeve did, and then I'm making note of that.
flag it, please.
Was there anything else from anyone? Okay, Mr.
yes,
Town, yes, go ahead.
Okay, records management assistant from 2 to 1. Okay, that's good. How much more is required, clerk? Like it should have been done at the end of this year and it's being pushed, okay. For how long?
So through you, your worship, to answer Councillor Palmer's question, it's a tough thing to gauge. When we looked at it originally, we thought it would be just scanning a bit of historical documentation, and that was it. But the problem was, once we actually got into it, there's a lot more records. We're talking about millions of records that the township has. We've done pretty much all the council record, for historical records, I guess I'll say. We've done all the council records, all the records at the complex, and all the records at the child care facilities. Those are your actual physical paper records. Electronic records, we're pretty much through the process of migrating all those records that were on our, what I will call our shared drive, into the Laserfiche system. We have rolled out Laserfiche, and so I shared that kind of overview video with council on what the Laserfiche system is about and what it does. But you're looking at tons of other areas of physical records, and unfortunately, I don't know how much records there are in those buildings, right? So you're looking at fire departments, you're looking at bylaw enforcement, property files, drainage files, planning files, economic development. We've made it through a decent amount of finance, but I've used this example before. So the Township of King, who had a fully implemented electronic records management system, it took them 7 years. We've been doing this about 3 years, so that's kind of my gauge right now. The other piece that that impacts your timeline is how far you want to go with this project. So, for example, it's one thing to put the records into the electronic repository for searching abilities. You can find things like that, but a lot of the efficiencies that the municipalities are implementing are based on workflows. So, for example, we have 3 workflows built right now. First one is on agreements. So when a bylaw or agreement is set to be addressed and needs to come to council, it flags it. It flags the agreement saying you require action on this. That's the first one. The second one, which was a massive undertaking, is your accounts payable workflow. So now all invoicing is done through Laserfiche. It pushes its way through the process for approvals and signatures, and then makes its way to accounts payable, compared to hand signing paper copies of documents and then being passed around the organization. And the third one that we're just in the middle of rolling out is timesheets submission. But like you can basically build a workflow around anything to streamline processes, right? There's things such as onboarding of new employees or complaint protocol or anything of that nature, right? So it depends on where council wants to go with this project, right? You can just focus on putting the historical documentation in the system, and that's fine, but you're losing out on a lot of the efficiencies to work through over time. But so I don't know if that gives you kind of a high level sense of a bit about the project, but like the other thing that myself and the CAO look for all the time is potential grants to help us continue to push this along. So just, I don't know if that's some context, if that's helpful. Unfortunately, I wish I had a clear-cut answer for you, but I don't fully know until we see like how many of these records are in these places and whether they even use a filing system, right? So that's one thing we encountered with some of our offsite locations is when we thought the starting point was here, the starting point was actually here because we thought we were all using Tom RIMS, so the Ontario Municipal Records Management System for filing stuff, and there was areas where that wasn't the case yet, so we had to bring them up to the same starting point so that we could implement the project. So I don't know if that helps, Councillor Palmer, but
Or you filled the boats.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Wright, please.
Yeah, I just, to flag for later discussion, I'd like to flag the addition of a summer student. Because again, I assume if we add this part-time position, it'll become a permanent part-time position. That'll affect every budget going forward, so we need to consider that one.
yep, that's capital.
Okay, okay, I'm going to turn over to Mr. Towns at this time, please.
Thank you, Rave. So we're on to the Finance Department, and we are proposing no changes. So, any questions on that one? Public Works and Facilities, I'll ask Greg to come up, please. Mr. Fertney.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to members of council. Currently, we have, or in 2023, we utilized a contractor to do the cemetery grass cutting in particular. And a couple of members of council mentioned that they were not necessarily satisfied with that contract and would wanted a reduction in the costs, but still wanted to maintain the level of service. And so we're proposing, in addition to one of the capital items, priority items was a new lawnmower. We are also asking for 2 summer students to help us with that grass cutting. So it's roughly 20 weeks throughout the year. Additionally, we're having a very difficult time finding a bylaw officer for the amount of hours that we currently require. And so we're looking at a third-party contractor, potentially, and I would be bringing a report to council on what those costs would be in the future. Right now, we're maintaining our level of service through the winter months, but I fully expect that things will be more active come the spring and summer. So the addition of $24,560, which I believe also includes the benefits, if any, would be for 2 summer students for cemetery operations.
Were there any questions for Director Fortney, please? Go ahead, Councillor Wright, please.
I guess it's just not really a question, but maybe it's something to look at. When I did look at the line by line for cemeteries, there is an increase in salaries full-time. But yet, this indicates summer students, so it might just be a misplacement of the salaries into the wrong line item. Just something to make a note to look at. There's not actually any part-time salaries in the budget under cemetery.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Wright. In most areas of the budget, all those salaries are allocated under salaries. It gets difficult Just for just overviewing, when you're reviewing the budgets and the detailed reports that I do quarterly, when they're staggered all over, I prefer to see them all under one, as they are all salaries, and I report in the same way to the ministries.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
I know we're going to be approaching it, but in the operating decision, item number 4 at salaries, the addition of 2 summer students, and it says, well, 24,000, then the net levy will be 45 and change. So that's, is it 24,000 per student, or per grass cutter, or is it that, or is it double that?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Palmer, that 24,000 as listed in this slide is for both of the summer grass cutters.
But in item 4, it doesn't say that.
Sorry, through you, Reeve, I'll have to go through item 4 and see
When we get
what
to
else
it?
is entailed in there.
That's fine.
These slides here of the proposed recommended staffing, we've broke it down by department and by function within the decision listing. We'll have to go through, but there's a lot of different things that are happening. So when we get there, I'll explain what happened.
All right, fair.
Okay, thank you. So no other questions for Director Fertney? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Towns, please.
Thank you, Reeve. So the next one up is Recreation and Children's Department. And I think we'll ask Ms. McLean and Director Fertney to speak to this one.
So through you, Reeve Heffer, to members of council, Tricia McLean is our manager of children's services at the Child Care Center, and she's a very important asset to our programming here. We have asked for an additional 2 full-time ECEs. I don't know if there's more of an explanation to that. We are looking at issues of retention of some of our part-time staff, which is causing us some grief as far as day-to-day programming and operations. We feel that if we were able to bring some of the part-time back up to full-time status, that we'd be able to retain our staff longer and continue with the programming and operations as we would like to see them. Is there anything more you wanted to add?
So I would just add that currently we have 150 on our wait list. So we do have quite a huge amount that are looking to get into the service. So with our licensed spaces right now, we're not fully operational with all the spaces due to the staffing. We just don't have the staffing. We feel that we would be completely full if we had additional staff to offset those spaces for the children.
Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Through you, Reeve, to Trish. 143,000 for 2 ECEs that are just moving up. So they got a wage, they're just getting a bump in wage. I'm just wondering, is there more to it? That's 143, that's a lot.
Right. That would be from the new, we just did last year a new market review, I believe. So prices did increase that way a little bit.
Wages increase?
Wages, yeah. So that would be a little bit more than last year. But that would be 2 full-time with their, with the new benefits and stuff as well, so.
Would you be replacing the 2 that are, say, moving up?
We would need more part-time just to offset those, vacation days and those sick days that the full-time would have, but we would not need to have full-time staff to replace those other full-time that would move in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Palmer, I'd also like to add that there was just within the last 2 or 3 weeks, there was some new provincial legislation on the requirement for payment for ECEs as well, which was a significant increase.
Yes, we read that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wright, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Reeve. Yeah, I wonder if we need a little bit more of a deep dive into the childcare costs, because I did notice from the budget that our financial position last year changed significantly, where there was $150,000, $200,000 around there, right? Like, because one of my questions was, like, did the government not increase their funding to offset the increase in wages for childcare workers?
Through you, Reeve Heffer to Councillor Red. I'm going to get Trish to respond to that, please.
So last year, there was a wage floor that was implemented by the federal government, but it was based on your current wage that you were at. So the funding would only flow to the staff that met that criteria of where their salary was at that point. Going forward this year, there will be more workforce funding that will flow through as well that will help offset those wages that we must implement going forward. So at this point, we're just not sure what that workforce funding amount will look like, but it will offset the new wage.
And then,
Go
one
ahead.
question, Reeve. So, by adding 2 full-time equivalents, so I understand where it's based on kind of retention and stuff like that, but are we expecting to actually increase the number of childcare spaces by adding these 2 full-time equivalent positions?
We would be able to accept more families into our programs, which would get more families using our services. So the more that enter into the program, then more funding. The funding that flows is based on our operational capacity. So the more that utilize our services, then the more funding that would come with that.
Thank you. We have Deputy Reeve, would you like to?
Yeah, thank you, through your, just have a question. These recommended staffing changes, are they in the budget already?
Through you, Reeve Heffer to Deputy Reeve Faulkner. Yes, all the recommended staffing changes and prior capital projects, priority 1, are included within, as well as once we get moving on into the decision listing piece, all of those are incorporated in what is presented with the 3.33% levy increase.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, no other questions? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Towns, please.
Thank you, Reeve. The fire department is requesting no further changes at this point in time. So we've gone through the recommended staffing. Did we want to have any further conversation? Would council like to have any further conversation prior to moving into the operating decision listing, or are we going to continue to collectively keep it all until the end of the presentation?
I think we could just keep carrying on if our clerk is jotting things down, if everybody's fine with that.
Okay, thank you, Reeve. So I will continue with the operating decision listing. So utilities and all departments, that's your hydro, water, natural gas, et cetera. We've gone through our year-to-date and increased by COLA. We're coming in with a decrease, believe it or not, from last year's budget of $33,900. This accounts for inflation cost adjustments and, like I mentioned, increased by hydro and aligned with the 2023 year actuals. Salaries and wages for all departments, so across the whole township of North Huron staff, they've been increased by the cost of living allowance of 3.6%. A COLA report was presented to council in November. This number of $589,270 includes merit increases and is aligned with the 2023 year's actuals and with recommended staffing levels that were just previously presented in the past slides. Benefits for all departments have been adjusted to align with service delivery cost increases, which came in at a tune of $12,000. Insurance for all departments just came through yesterday. But our overall total as approved for increase for the year was $811.
So were there any questions on this page? Councillor Wright, please.
Well, yeah, just on the second line, right? So I would have assumed that the majority of the salaries and wages would have been in COLA, but yet COLA just went up 3.6%, but the overall change was like 7.88%. So there's a lot of salary increase there that's not due to COLA. So what is that from?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Mitch Wright. This also includes the merit allowances and the additional staffing that is proposed within the previous recommended slides.
So just to, that includes your 2 full-time ECEs, your 2 summer students for your Public Works Department, your summer student for your Economic Department. And
Okay, so this is all,
This is
That's
all
everything.
items, not just
Right.
existing workforce.
And the merit.
So if you, so going back to the recommended staffing, depending on what council decides, whatever you decide there
Right.
will impact this number.
Okay, this, sorry, includes the de-essentialing, part-time as
The
well?
2 part-time temporary, the museum assistants, the records management.
Okay,
So that includes everything.
okay, thank you.
Okay. So nothing else? I don't see anything else. Okay. Mr. Towns, go ahead. Next page, please.
Thank you, Rave. So, then this is already included in that previous slide, and is well within the decision listing. So salaries and wages for Public Works, 45,260 for the 2 cemeteries. Now I see where you're getting, Councillor Palmer. I will verify that slide.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Under General Government, the Clerk's Department and Finance Department, conditional grants, unconditional grants, principal interest and physician recruitment, committee buddies request have been updated. Physician recruitment is a strategic plan item. The one-time 2023 strategic planning exercise funds have been removed, and the sale of the proceeds have been transferred to reserves. So there's a decrease of 87,955. Council, under the Clerk's Department, honorarium and benefits have been increased by COLA, again, your 3.6%, and council chamber operational expenses have been added, and legal accounting funds have been added, and that comes in at $68,851.
Okay.
Question?
Okay, questions on this page now?
Yeah, it's regarding the council. Sort of sensitive, it's a sensitive area for us. Like for COLA, I'm just wondering, 68,000 seems a lot because the COLA amount isn't much. Operating the new council chambers, it's just expenses and that's not a huge amount. Is the rest legal? Like, it just seems high.
Yeah, through your worship, to answer Councillor Palmer's question. So, yeah, your 3.6% COLA, so that applies to your honorarium times 7, as well as your special and committee meeting pay. And what we noticed this year was that we had actually under budgeted for what you had spent on special meetings compared to the previous term of council. Part of that is your additional meetings tied to your strategic plan, but also just the number of meetings that was attended. So we've increased the budget there. And then in addition to that related to the council chambers, there's about 8,500 in there specifically to address your accessible podium at your new chambers, which is something that was identified by the Huron County Accessibility Advisory Committee, that any podium you need there needs to meet accessibility, so someone in a wheelchair could use that. We've got a couple quotes, and basically in the new year I'll be bringing something to council saying what you want to do, but it's basically to cover that expense to meet your accessibility requirements. And then on top of that, again, the rest would be legal. So that's kind of, and Director Towns can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's basically your integrity commissioner or any legal costs incurred by council, like specific to, I guess, council.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Towns, please.
Thank you, Rave. Under the Office of the CAO, Cleeks Department Facilities, the 2024 budget as presented has been adjusted to 2023 actuals with a significant increase of $173,500 to achieve compliance with the asset management legislation. These funds have been added, there have been funds added to develop an attraction and retention strategy professional development program, program staff under the strategic plan. This is an increase to the budget, but please keep in mind that the $173,500 has already been pre-approved by council when Director Fertney and myself came forward with a request in, I believe, October or November. So that brings that overall up by $196,714. The Town Hall Theatre, which runs under the office of the CAO, all revenues and costs for the Town Hall Theatre have been allocated to this budget, including part-time hours for house managers during performances. This is providing an increase of $5,748. Fire suppression under the fire department. Revenues and expenditures have been adjusted to the 2023 year's actuals. COLA has been applied. The funds to replace the SCBA equipment will be transferred to reserves. Additional equipment purchases are included within the budget are the extradition equipment, the Ford Interceptor, some IT upgrades, and some decontamination upgrades. The increase to the fire department budget as proposed for 2024 is $118,689. Fire prevention and North Huron fire calls running under the fire department again. The costs have simply been aligned with previous year's actuals, and that came in at a budget decrease of $2,051.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Van Hitterson, please.
Thank you, Reeve. For the Town Hall Theatre, the extra cost, when we are moving council chambers, will that go down or will that change? And for the fire department, those added costs, will they be just for North Huron, or is there allocated costs for other municipalities?
So through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Van Hitterson. The Town Hall Theatre, those are costs that we're required to, when we have an event here, we have to staff it. It's our facility, so we're required to have staff on site. So with the change in the Town Hall Theatre staffing, it's been determined that we need, there's going to be, they're predicting more events, which is going to require more staff time. As for the fire department, I believe, if I'm not wrong, Mr. Reedman, that all of these costs are shared through the neighboring municipalities, the serving municipalities.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Palmer?
Yeah, two questions, Reeve. Okay, this is an accounting question, and I'm just showing my ignorance. When you say it's adjusted to 23's actuals, what do you actually mean? I have a guess, but what are you actually meaning by it? Because it's mentioned several times.
Yeah, through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Palmer. What we've done is we've gone through each budget line by line, with our actuals as accounted for in our GL, our general ledger system, and have reviewed any discrepancies between budget from previous year budgeted versus actual, and we're aligning ourselves within these, including COLA, and what any different change in operational needs or requirements, if whether they're inefficiencies or any of those.
So you're keeping them in line?
So we're keeping them in line with what our actual costs were for the previous year.
Yeah, okay. And the other question is with fire, 118,000, you did say that it's shared, so is this, is it $300,000 or $400,000 and the rest of it's shared by the other partners? Or does this figure get shared?
This is sorry, through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Palmer. The $118,000, as you're seeing presented, is an increase from last year's overall. So when you go through your line by line and you see that bottom line is shared through all the neighboring municipalities, with the exception of fire calls, the fire call wages line, as that gets billed out, and North Huron pays for their own within that other budget line.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wright, please.
Yeah, so with regards to item 7, so when council made the decision to add a position for asset management, we at the same time, that was in conjunction with eliminating a position of public works. So I would have thought that if one half of that decision was on this decision log, we would have had both, but that's just kind of aside. But it's maybe something I'll follow up in an email, but I couldn't, looking at the budgets, I couldn't tell which budget that elimination of that position came out of. Nothing, I couldn't see a significant decrease on expense on any particular line item to reflect the elimination of that position.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Wright. Within this specific number 7, as you first mentioned, and I'll carry on the other piece after, this 196 includes that $173,000, which was that staff person and the implementation of the asset management plan and the incorporation of, I believe it was the GIS maintenance manager system for our asset management plan. When speaking to the salaries piece overall, before Alyssa had left, we had done some extensive work determining our our working agreements with all our employees, the number of hours allowed to be worked, where they're supposed to be worked, how they're supposed to be allocated. We spent several hours, days, and I've sat with each department head, and we have gone through and actually allocated our staff time more accordingly. So for an example, with the asset management, they're not strictly administration. They spend a lot of time working on water and wastewater. They spend a lot of time working with landfills, storm drains, roads, water, I already mentioned water and sewer, but there are many different areas. We have actually distributed our staff hours more accordingly as to what they're physically working on.
Okay, no other? Okay, Mr. Towns?
Thank you, Reeve. Policing costs. OPP policing for East Wawanosh, Blythe, and Wingham wards with no enhancements for any ward. The OPP policing costs increased by $27,997 for the year. Protective services under the Office of the CAO. Levy collected to the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority has been increased by COLA. However, just to let Council know, I received some information late in the day yesterday that is actually increased by $9,116. So I'll be making that, you'll see that adjustment in the second draft in January. Building services, public works and facilities. Building permit revenues and expenditures have been adjusted to align with 2023 year actuals, and funds have been added to facilitate implementation of an online building permitting system, and that came in at an additional cost to the building services budget of $3,014. Property standards. Attracting and retaining a part-time bylaw enforcement has been challenging. Staff are investigating and have been investigating contracting bylaw enforcement services to a third party. And then, of course, again, with every other budget line, we have revenue and expenditures have been adjusted to the 2023 actuals.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Wright, and then Councillor Palmer, please.
Just curious about number 14. Sounds like you've started discussions. Would that, if we did contract a third party, would that be a fee per kind of on-call system, or would it just be a set rate for service for the year?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, I'm going to get Director Fertney to come up to speak to Councillor Wright's question.
So through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Wright. So the third party is an option for us that I'll bring back to council to discuss further. It's based on, it would be potentially based on what the bylaw officer was doing for us previously, and that bylaw officer was shared amongst other municipalities. The two other municipalities that were part of this project or part of this system that we currently had have gone their separate ways and done their own thing. So we're kind of left in the lurch trying to find other opportunities to maintain levels of service. We're looking at an on-call basis, not a physical person to be stationed here specifically, but those details still need to be worked out. And certainly, again, I'll be bringing this back to you folks to look at before anything's set in stone.
Okay, thank you. And go ahead.
Yeah, number 11 with policing. I'd like you to flag that, please. We need to have a discussion. East Wawanosh is being unfairly charged. I know I've been told that the province says that land assessment has to be included. Well, that's bull. There's 1,200 people that don't agree, and I think there has to be some sort of adjustment because it doesn't go from 145,000 to 300,000, and there's no more policing. And it's a low crime ward anyways. So it's, there's a lot of people that are very upset about it, and I'd just like to talk about it further.
Yeah. The clerk has that flagged then. Councillor Faulkner, go ahead, please.
Yeah, we can discuss that. It's been flagged. We can discuss that in another portion of this meeting to go through and give explanations and be rhetorical. We either have the conversation now while it's being presented to staff or be presented to council, or we have it after. The length of discussion on why we're getting it flagged really has no meaning to this. We're going to be coming back to it.
Yeah, it's been flagged, so. Okay, any other questions from here? Okay, go ahead, Director Towns, please.
Thank you, Reeve. Animal control wages have been adjusted to align with 2023 year's actuals. So there was a reduction of $55,825. Under emergency planning, under the Office of the CAO, expenditures again have been aligned with 2023 year actuals, and there was a reduction of $7,500. Public Works and Facilities, the operational costs have been adjusted by 2023 year actuals. Funds have been added for a bridge report. The overtime is captured within the regular salaries line, and gas tax revenue has been adjusted to reflect the 2024 actual. Public Works is coming in as proposed with a decrease of $50,450 to the 2024 budget. Street lighting, the funds have been added for repair and maintenance for some minor adjustments to align with 2023 year actuals, which is $5,175. This includes the additional staffing required to install, if approved, the new 7 LED lights as proposed in the Priority 1 capital listing. Stormwater budget has been adjusted to align with 2023 year actuals, and there was an increase of $3,300 on that.
Questions, go ahead. Go first to Councillor Palmer, please.
Yeah, this was relating to, number 17, relating to an earlier one. Like, there's for Public Works, a -50, that's good. Is part of that, we need to hear that part of that was from a staff reduction there, because we hired a staff. This is what we really liked, that we hired a staff and we reduced the staff. So that made it palatable, okay? So is that partly in here?
Through you, Reeve, I'll get Director Fertney to speak to Councillor Palmer's question.
Through you, Reeve Heffer to Councillor Palmer. Actually, what has happened is we've aligned with the actuals from 2023, and in 2023 we were actually operated a little bit leaner than we had in previous years, and that's why we have the reduction.
Okay. So it was almost reflected last year, or this year.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Towns, please.
Thank you, Reeve. So our waste and landfills, tipping fee and bag revenue has been adjusted to align with 2023 year actuals. The Blythe-Hulett landfill budget adjusted based on engineers' cost estimates, and funds have been added to do some engineering work for the Lingham landfill site, and there's an increase proposed of $5,649. For the cemeteries, Public Works and Facilities, and thank you, Councillor Palmer, for that catch. I will confirm this. But the revenue's been increased to align with 2023 year actuals, and the pilot grass cutting has been discontinued in favor of a mower purchase and hiring of 2 summer students. Staff wages have been allocated for the grass cutting.
Any questions here? Councillor Van Hitterson, please.
Yes, thank you, Reeve. this cemetery grass cutting is for all the cemeteries in the municipality, isn't it?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, you were correct, Ms.
Thank you.
Hatterson.
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
Yeah, through your, so I'm not sure why this is going up so much. I mean, I would think the part-time wages would be offset by the contract amount that's being, eliminated, right? So, what are some of the major drivers for this cost going up?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, I will get Director Fertney to answer Councillor Wright's question.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, Councillor Wright. So there were wages, as Director Townsend mentioned earlier, wages were reallocated to where they were actually supposed to be put. We actually did have quite a bit of activity in the cemetery in 2023 as well. And so these things are reflective in this increase proposed for the draft budget.
So just to clarify, so it's not really grass cutting, it's all the other ceremony work, which the wages had to be more appropriately reallocated, correct?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, yes, sir.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Towns, go ahead.
Thank you. The Child Care Main Daycare Center, the wages have been adjusted to comply with the minimum wage rate established by the province for daycare staff. Increased staff complement by 2 full-time ECEs for a total of 17 full-time staff. The revenue has been adjusted to align with 2023 year actuals, and staff wages have been allocated for building repair and maintenance, and funds have been added for investigative work to expand daycare services into Blythe. This year, as proposed, there is an increase of $263,561. The early learning programs, the revenue has been increased to align with 2023 year actuals, and staff wages have been allocated based on program needs for an increase of $90,531. The before and after Maitland River School program, revenue and expenditures have been adjusted to align with 2023 actuals, and that came at a decrease of $16,949.
Any questions? Councillor Van Ederson, then to Mr. Wright. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. The increase in the wages is catched in here, but we don't know anything about the money we're getting from the province to allocate all that to, for the salaries that we're getting back. So do we need to put this in our budget already, or is this something that we can postpone a little bit until we know how much money we're getting for the government because of the increase in the wages?
Thank you, Ms. Henderson. Through you, Reeve Heffer, I will have Ms. McLean answer your question.
Yeah, we have not been given any indication what that funding will look like for 2024. It should come at the end of January, is hopeful. There's also some emerging, what they call emerging funding as well that will be presented for 2024, which will help offset operational costs and any larger projects too.
Thank you. Are you fine with that, Councillor?
Yes, but I would like to talk about it, how we address this.
Okay, that's being flagged. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Wright, please.
Sorry, I was gonna, just make sure we flagged the same thing. Thank you, Reeve.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. McLean. Okay, no other questions here? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Towns.
Thank you. So the Early On program is a 100% cost recovery program. The Wingham Parks budget, it has been adjusted to align with 2023 year actuals, and the transfer to reserves was removed for the 2024 year, coming in at a reduction of $31,462. The Parks Blythe, staff wages have been allocated based on 2023 year actuals, increasing by $35,895. The Parks East Wawanach, staff wages have been allocated based on 2023 year actuals. There was an increase of $19,000. The Blythe Campground had increased staffing hours to adequately support the campground activities for an increase of $10,491. And the recreation programs, revenues and expenditures are aligned with 2023 year actuals, and there was a decrease of $12,725.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Palmer?
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Seaswanash Park, I'm just, if it's the little park on Highway 4, I'd like to know which park it is, because that's a lot of money if it's just a 200 by 300 square park.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, I'll have Director Nefertiti answer Councilor Palmer's question.
Through you, Reeve Heffer to Councillor Palmer. So this is the park we're talking about. This year, under the grass cutting contract, we actually had them do it for free for us when they were going from site to site between the two cemeteries. But of course, if council decides not to go along with the contract, then we'll have staff wages as well as equipment chargebacks for staff time and equipment time and fuel, et cetera, to maintain that park as the crew goes from one place to another.
Rental of the porty?
I know the porta potty, I guess, sir.
Yeah, okay. Just my comment, it seems an awful lot of money for a very small surface.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. Anything else from anyone? Okay, Director.
Okay, thank you. So the aquatics programs, revenues have been adjusted to align with 2023 year actuals. Increased wages due to staffing requirements and increase of transfers to reserves. Pool closures on Sunday to allow for more efficient use of existing staff resources. There's an increase of $183,061. The fitness programs, revenues and expenditures have been aligned with 2023 year actuals, with an increase to transfers to reserves, so that the proposed increase is $21,599. Recreation administration, salaries have been aligned with 2023 year actuals, and there's a decrease of $21,599. Arena Wingham, revenues and expenditures have been aligned with the 2023 year actuals, with a reduction of $21,361. The Knights of Columbus Hall, with allocation of staff time for maintenance has been included for an increase of $23,198. The Arena Blythe, revenues and expenditures have been aligned with 2023 year actuals, and an increase in transfers to reserves for future capital projects, with a proposed increase of $18,480.
Okay, questions? Oh, Councillor Wright, please.
Yeah, thanks for your, so, in most cases, I understand why we would set the budget based on 2023 actuals, but as we're all aware, there's significant fee increases to a lot of these rec programs. So, I guess I assume that was done with the expectation that would increase revenues. So, from a budget accuracy perspective, why are we not forecasting the projected increase in revenues as opposed to 2023 actuals?
Through you, Reeve Heffer to Councillor Wright, it's hard to determine with all the publicity that the fees and charges bylaw drew, it's hard to predict what is going to happen and what users we may actually lose or may actually gain. So staff would prefer to err on the side of caution and be more realistic with what happened last year, with the expectation, with the hope that we would gain revenues. And this is a year of change, a significant change. So it's with hopes that it'll balance itself out, and next year we'll have a more firm base to review.
Councillor Palmer, please.
Yeah, it's a staffing issue at the Knights on 35 there. It's always been maintained by us, so we're just shifting staff costing per area, or what?
Yes, through you, Reeve Heffer to Councillor Palmer, that is correct. We're allocating staff time accordingly within this 2024 budget.
Okay. Thank you. See no other hands? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Towns, please.
Thank you, Reeve. So the Blythe Community Hall, COLA has been applied to staff wages, job costed to the facility. There was an increase of $610. The East Wawanosh Arena, revenue decreased to align with the 2023 year actuals. So there was an additional $7,553. Library Wingham, the revenues are unchanged. Those are provincial grants. So expenditures are aligned with 2023 year actuals, and there's a transfer to reserves included. So there's an increase of $22,912. Our Library Blythe, expenditures are aligned with 2023 year actuals, and funds have been added to conduct investigative work for the relocation of the library, and that came in at a decrease of $80. The museum, in 2023, reserve funds were used to net zero the deaccessioning project. Within the 2024 draft budget, 2 temporary full-time deaccessioning assistants have been included for council's consideration at $109,704. The Blythe Memorial Hall, where there's an increase of $25,497, which includes a $25,000 increase to transfers to reserves.
Questions for Mr. Towns at this time? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
I'm very curious as to, this is regarding the Memorial Hall. There's basically a transfer to reserve for $25,000. How do you justify adding that? And there's a lot of other, several other examples where it makes the budget look really bad, and there's very little income to really offset it. It's just thrown in there. I'm sure you've got a reason for it. Well, we need transfers, there's no doubt about it, but for this one in particular, there's no income to it.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to answer Councillor Palmer's question, this is still a municipal asset that we are required to maintain at this point in time.
So for that reason, you just, okay, that's fine. That's fair.
Saw a hand, no?
Well, I just
Okay.
wondered if we're flagging it or
Oh,
are we discussing it now?
no. Oh. No, it wasn't flagged, I don't think, so. Oh.
There seems to be something going on over here. Sometimes there's a bit of conversation required or, to make a point. And, if it's expected of me to have a one-sentence thing, it's difficult sometimes. At least I'm trying to add conversation and, get explanation, and fine and dandy. But I'm not going to be limited. I may have traveled a bit too far this first time you brought it up, but I'll try and
Yeah,
restrict.
okay, appreciate that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. No other thing? Go ahead, Mr. Towns, please.
Thank you, Reeve. Under Economic and Community Development, the expenditures have been aligned with the 2023 year actuals, including the continuation of salary and wages for the Community Engagement Coordinator, Economic Development Officer, and for a summer student to assist with marketing and promotion, and increased advertising funds have been included. So the Economic Community Development budget has a proposed increase of $45,244. The Planning and Development budget, expenditures have been aligned with 2023 year actuals, and it came in with a decrease of $9,850. Drainage, again, has been aligned with the 2023 year actuals and came in with a decrease of $675.
Okay, questions for this line? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer,
Thank you,
please.
Reeve. Yeah, could you flag 38, please? Because I think we need some discussion on
Okay.
that.
Yep, I had it flagged previously with the staff.
I know. We're going to have repeating, but that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay, any other questions on this last group here? Seeing none?
Thank you, Reeve.
Okay, thank you.
So that's it for the decision listing, now the budget's.
Correct. So how do we want to move? So that's the completion of the decision summary listing. that staff has presented to council. Just some 2024 draft budget notables. We got some significant capital projects which in the P1 that have been included. Westcast emergency generator, Westcast HVAC replacement, Blythe campground upgrades. Additional funds are required for Blythe and Westcast dehumidifier replacements, a daycare center backup generator, and roadworks to Reed Road, Mill Street, Charles Street, Edward Street, and Patrick Street. And in addition to 6 new LED streetlights for Park Drive. We have some additional long-term considerations: aging infrastructure, our asset management, fleet and facilities examples, future developments, levels of service, wants versus needs, staff attraction and retention, and the uncertainty of future federal and provincial funding.
May I have a question for you, through you, Mr. Townsend? I'm just curious, your last comment there, the uncertainty of future federal and provincial funding, do you see that changing in the next couple years? Like,
Through you, Reeve Heffer, it's very uncertain.
understand.
The levels of government and decisions change on a regular basis. There was threats a number of years ago that we were going to lose the Ontario Municipal Partnership funding. And it's almost a good thing that COVID came, because that never did happen. It has been decreasing slightly over the years. It hasn't been overly, knock on wood, significant for us. Gas tax has different levels. It's actually decreased again for us. We do not know, and we will not know until the day comes, unfortunately.
Yep. Thank you for your comment there. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Reeve, this is regarding staff attraction and retention. Now, I don't know if it gets included in the whole staffing one, but if you could flag that, please.
Yeah, I'm not sure. These are just kind of,
I know.
these
but
aren't really
it's still
incorporations in any
here.
budget or anything,
Still
so.
here.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, fine, Dandy.
Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
Yeah, it's kind of a higher level question to budget, but we did have a lot of staff vacancies this year. I think it's the reality where you're always going to have some vacancies, right? That's just the reality of kind of running any business now. Where does that unspent money go? Does that go into a reserve fund? Like when we actually underspend on salaries, where does that money go at the end of the year?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Wright, at the end of the year, any surplus or deficit, any surplus in general, right, the operating cash flow, cash positive surplus, actually goes into the asset management reserve as per the approved asset management reserve bylaws, or reserve bylaws in general.
So did that show up in this budget?
We're not at year end yet. So through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Wright, once we get the year end books closed and we have our annual audit and we have the auditors come in and do their presentation, that's when all that transpires.
Right, but this is a forecast. Should we not be forecasting that amount and showing that in the 2024 budget?
The surplus you meant?
Yeah, because if that's potentially, is that not potentially, so if it goes into asset management, is that not potentially money that could be spent on capital projects in 2024?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Wright, yes, absolutely, you are correct. Unfortunately, we can't determine what our year-end surplus or deficit is going to be at this point in time. If your question on the salaries piece, for 2024, we budgeted as a full staff complement, right? So we can fulfill those positions.
But for most of your stuff in your decision matrix, you're basing it on 2023 actuals, which none of those items are done this year either, right?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Wright, we've reviewed them based on and we've done a lot of work to determine what our actual allotted salaries should be at a full capacity, and we've taken that into consideration.
Anyways, I think it's something we should think about, right? Because would be a pretty significant line item, I think, that would potentially help out our budget this year and allow us to move ahead with some capital projects.
Right.
And the fact is, we'll probably underspend this year and, underspend on 2024, et cetera, right? So anyways, just an idea. That's all, really. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Director Towns, please.
So the next slide here just provides a summary of revenue. As mentioned in the earlier slides, there was $10.1 million in revenues that we're receiving. This slide here just simply shows you which municipal function was receiving those revenues.
Any questions from council? Okay, go ahead.
This slide here shows some transfers from reserves. One was discussed last night, the transfer to the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan. That is not a tax item. That was a tax levied item in 2023. That is just simply a transfer from year over year. Under the $16,550 you're seeing under the administration modernization, those are costs that we received, monies that we received in 2019, I believe, for modernization. We use that to cover the costs of our folding stuffing machine, copier leases, etc. And then the $39,000, $598 for the CBO's office is they work on a cost recovery basis. So if there's a deficit throughout their budget year, they pull from their reserves to net zero. And again, in earlier slides, I mentioned $17.6 million in expenditures overall. And here's a summary by municipal function of how those monies are spent. And again, the priority one capital listing as proposed, which is included in the budget as presented. You can.
Okay.
Give it.
So just in terms of the roads piece, Reed Road, Mill Road, and all that sort of stuff. So as council will recall, you have approximately $5 million in reserves from the sale of assets. So the airport, the Hutton Heights lands, etc. So in terms of funding from reserves, those are projects that could be funded from that reserve fund that you have. And it's in the budget that those will be funded from reserves in terms of the actual reserve proceeds from the sale. So that's for council's consideration.
Okay, Councillor Palmer, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Could you have a chart at some point showing our balance for reserves? Because
Through you, Reeve Heffer to Councillor Palmer. Yes, they're included in my quarterly reports as well, but I could provide you with an
Please.
updated one.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, we'll just give Director Towns a sec there. Now we're going to hit the asset management.
And here is a multi-year asset management financial requirement. As per our asset management plan, and this is a major work in progress. If council has any questions on any of these areas, we would have to speak to Director Fertney.
Are there any questions with this at all, council?
just one.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Yeah, this is scary. As long as everyone understands that we can only afford to move so far.
I think a lot of places are looking at this and they're finding out our infrastructure, it just keeps getting older and.
Like, it's understandable.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
Okay, so the next slide is a just snapshot of all of the transfers to reserves. As I mentioned in the beginning slides, that there was $1.6 million, in transfers to reserves in the proposed budget, and this is how they are to be, how we're recommending the allocation.
So with this, are there any questions when looking down this transfer to reserves? Any questions? Yes, go ahead, please.
this would be to Carson. The sale of the airport, those funds, how are we gonna, should we have a discussion at some point in time, not away from the budget, obviously, but it's here, as to what we do with it?
Through your worship, to Councillor Palmer's question, the CAO might be in a better position to speak to that. I know
Okay.
that we as the senior management team wanted to get a sense of council's priorities as we went through the strategic planning process, and then to bring something forward after that that basically aligns with your priorities and your strategic plan. So I don't know if there's anything beyond that, CAO Evans?
No, and Director Towns, you may want to. So just in terms of the way that asset management reserve account is set up, is basically the money is there. It's a sale proceeds account, so the money's sitting there in the account. And the way it's worded and designed is that staff bring forward recommendations as to how to utilize those funds. So as part of this 2024 budget process, this is a situation in terms of, this is, if council, in terms of using those funds and allocating those funds, you can allocate those funds through the budget process. And at this point, from a staff's perspective, in terms of with the roads work to be completed there and to keep your taxation at the 3%, I'll call it, you can pull from those reserve funds and have all that work completed, but not impact your taxation rate. But certainly if you want to have an overall high-level, broader conversation as to how you want to allocate those funds, you can do that. That's not the way, though, it's currently set up in the policy that council's approved. The policy, again, as it is approved, is these funds are there, staff bring forward your recommendations, and hence that's what we're doing through this budget.
Okay.
Fine with that, okay?
Okay, thank you. So we have, within this 3.33% levy increase, we are levying $7.5 million, very close to, and this by municipal function on how those expended, the net cost of those services are going to cost the municipality.
Sorry, Reeve.
Yes, sorry.
Just on the previous slide, sorry, I was a bit slow. I had to do some math in my head. It's really just a comment at this point. I don't think we need to flag it for later, but if you take out the sale of the airport, in last year's budget, we were able to put 2.1 million into reserves, and this year we're only putting 1.6 million. Right, so although the budget ended up at a reasonable tax bill, we're basically going backwards as far as our savings go, correct? Like, as far as the amount of money we have in reserves to do asset management, we're basically draining those funds.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Wright, you are correct. There is a lot of capital projects listed this year and not near as much money going back into reserves. However, staff has taken priority to get as much into reserves as possible.
Thank you, Reeve.
Any other comments? Okay.
Were we okay on this one?
Yeah, I believe, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Reeve. So now we are to the donation request. I'll let Council Clerk Lamb speak to this.
Thanks, Director Towns. So included in council's agenda package was the full list of letters or materials you received as part of delegations for those asking for funding in 2024. So based on your current donation and fee waiving policy that you adopted last night, there's a cap at $6,000 in your council's community partnership fund budget, and no more than $2,000 can be allocated to any one individual requesting group. So this is all the requests. Some of them were received after the deadline, but as is our practice, we've included them all. I guess the one thing to note, so the Alice Munro, and it's reflected on that slide. So traditionally that has been funded through the economic development budget, and there's been $3,000 annually for that, but it depends whether council wants to treat that as part of your donation request or continue to treat that separately. We've just put that there in the interest of transparency. There's 3 requests that specified specific amounts. Others have not necessarily specified specific amounts, but the elementary school fair, it's been a standard amount, I think, of $300 provided annually. In the past, the community food share, I believe, was $2,000 council provided last year, so I don't know if that helps with your benchmarking, but basically that's there. It's up to you as council of whether you want to provide that direction now or whether you want to finish the slide deck. I know we're getting near the end of the slide deck, but you could provide that direction now if you want to, while it's in front of you, if that's what the Reeve, as the chair, wants to do.
Go ahead, Deputy Reeve, please.
Thank you, through you, Reeve. I'd like to flag the donations request for the compensation. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Wright, please.
And I know we're going to talk about it later, but it was actually clarified prior to voting on the motion, which was presented by Council Palmer, that the Alice Munro Festival would be excluded from the donation request. So I think we need to remember that when we're talking about it, that was, clarification was provided before we approved the amendment to adopt this donation process.
Okay.
Yep. And we'll flag it.
Okay, we'll ask Director Towns to pre-budget.
Pre-budget approval requests. Included within this draft budget for council's consideration are 2 pre-budget approval requests. These pre-budget approval requests are time-sensitive in nature. In order for the township to proceed with certain services prior to the passing of the annual budget, staff requires the approval of council to ensure that the appropriate funds required are secured within the operating budget. There are 2 requests to renew services, continue with services. Request number 1 is the museum deaccessioning assistance. In 2023, council approved the hiring of 2 temporary full-time museum deaccessioning assistants. This project was commenced in May of 2023. To complete this project, staff is recommending the 2 temporary full-time museum deaccessioning assistants be extended until the end of 2024. Completion of this project is expected late in 2024. However, staff will be monitoring and adjusting the employee contract end dates accordingly. Staff are seeking pre-budget approval of $99,750 to extend these contracts, to extend the contracts for the 2 temporary museum deaccessioning assistants.
Okay, so
You might as well continue the slides.
go ahead with number 2, please.
Pre-budget approval request number 2 is the continuation of the Laserfiche implementation. Currently, the Township of North Huron employs 2 temporary staff to implement Laserfiche. That's our electronic records management system. These wages were initially paid through a combination of a March 2019 Municipal Modernization Fund and Municipal Modernization Program. These funds were extended into 2022, and council funded the balance of both positions until the end of 2023 throughout taxation. The project scope has expanded and is not yet complete. Staff are seeking pre-budget approval of $61,138 for a one-time full contract position until the end of 2024.
Just like Director Towns, keep going.
Yep.
So the next steps, is we changed up a little bit, but council to provide direction on the 2024 donation requests. Council provide direction on proposed changes to operating and capital budgets. Pass motions for pre-budget approvals. And our next budget meeting would be scheduled for January 12th, 2024 at 9 a.m.
In the
in the new council chambers. So thank you for your time today, council.
I appreciate the work that you did with this, Director Towns, and A lot of questions got answered here and whatnot. Again, we know there's a lot of work put into this, so do we want to have a quick break? Or is everyone feeling that they can keep carrying on?
I'd like a break at some point.
A quick break? Go ahead. We'll return here in about 3-4 minutes.
So I'll actually look for a motion then.
We could
So that the
finish the
council of the
motion off.
Township of North Huron hereby agrees to recess the December 19, 2023 budget meeting until 10:55 a.m.
I'm mover. Councillor Palmer, Deputy Reeve, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay.
Carve our
You're back.
names in.
Okay, thank you for getting back to your positions real quick. And again, is a great first part of the meeting, and look forward to what we come out with this part now. And at this time, I'm just going to turn it over to our clerk to carry away, please.
So, thank you, Your Worship. So the first motion that we're looking for council direction on is related to your 2024 donation requests. So at this time, again, I'm looking for council direction on which donations you want to approve and for what amounts. And then based on that discussion, I will craft a motion for council's consideration.
Go ahead. You got it? Sorry, go on. Go ahead, Councilor Van Henderson,
Yeah, I'm
please.
trying to find a slide where the donations are. There.
Slide 38.
I think donations from it's our taxpayers' money we're spending. I think it should be spent in the community. So instead of United Way per Huron, I would like to have some money donated to the Northern Huron Connection Center, $1,000. Blight Community Betterment, they didn't specify an amount, so it doesn't matter too much to me. The Belgrave Playground, $1,000 should be good for me. I have a little bit of trouble with the Wingham Tennis and Pickleball Club because they are not really a club. They were just two people presenting anything, and the Vans Fund is still in the Vans Fund. They don't have a specified bank account or anything like that. So for now, I have a little bit of trouble giving money to them. The North Huron Community Food Share, $1,000 is fine for me. Yeah, I would like to share it a little bit among the community.
And then I take it with, you're fine with Huron County plowings, 150, and the school fair, 300? Because that's sure a lot of children from the areas go make use of that fair, so yes.
Yep.
Go ahead, Deputy Reed, please.
Like, on response to the donation requests, I concur with the, I have some interpretations with the United Way. When you look at their, what their funding goes to, their funding goes to, also goes to food stores, not food stores,
Food banks.
food banks, not specifically to the North Huron one, which, I think that's our responsibility as a municipality to look after our own. I had some interpretations with the United Way portion that said that they support the YMCA's. And that would be not in our area. They don't support any of the physical activities in our own recreation departments. That's going out of our area. I find they have their own section of fundraising that they do. That they have their whole staff to do that. So the United Way here in Perth, I think that's more of a Huron County donation would be more proper for that. Just some clarification on the Wingham Tennis and Pickleball court there. I fully support the Wingham Tennis rehabilitation of that piece of town assets up there. I concur with Councillor Van Huysum that the pickleball club is a private club, and if you notice in the actual description of the tennis court and its historical, it was removed from the tennis club when it was deemed that it wasn't a public facility, and to go back to a pickleball club and supporting taxpayer money to a private club, I would much rather see that stay in the control of the township. But I fully support the revitalization of it, and if they want to put pickleball courts in there, I think that would be fine. I just don't agree with having the attachment of a private club to that. Other than that, I don't see any other problems with the donations.
Okay, we're going around. Go ahead, Counselor Wright, and then Counselor Palmer.
Yeah, so as far as donations goes, no additions or changes to the two comments made so far. Again, just for clarification, the Alice Munro is actually shows as a line item in the economic development budget, so it would be funded from economic development, whether as opposed to donations.
And,
Just a
okay,
rebuttal.
go ahead, and then to Deputy Reeve. Go ahead, Counselor Palmer.
Yeah, the food share is important. I'm going to repeat a little bit, so please bear with me. I guess maybe it's good if we can sort of grab hold of, okay, we're going to give to these groups, and then wrangle around about how much. But the food share, definitely, the playground, it'll be $1,000, the school fair for $300, Plowman's for $150, and of course, the Blythe Betterment Committee, $500. And what did you say? Was there no?
Well, the Northern Huron Connection Center instead of the United Way per
Sure.
Huron to keep it in the
Sure.
community. That's important for
Okay.
me. And then we can always leave some money in there for late requests.
Yeah.
Nothing to be wrong
So
with.
is that kind of, was everybody okay with that particular list, at least?
So maybe, I guess, if I may, Your Worship, I'll read back what you have. I just don't have an amount for Blythe Community Betterment Committee yet. So your motion would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby approves the following donation requests. Blythe Community Betterment Committee in a certain amount, Huron County Plowmen's Association for $150, Elementary School Fair for $300, Belgrave Playground Project $1,000, North Huron Community Food Share $1,000, Northern Huron Connection Center $1,000, and further that the Alice Munro Festival continue to be funded $3,000 through the economic development budget. So basically, that's what you're at right now. So
Sorry, the Blythe Betterment, what did you say? for
I
that?
don't have an amount there yet. That's the only one.
500? Or is that, anybody want more for that?
Well, they're beautifying the town
Yeah.
there. I think it's only fair because they're doing work, I know it's in the public work, they're doing some work for the Horticultural Society here. It's sort of, that's sort of what they are, right? The ladies that look after the thing. Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, yeah. First on, yeah, on the Blythe Community Betterment, I've requested them to put in an amount, but they really didn't know. But they also do the parades, the Santa Claus parades. They were just looking at help for the bands are getting increasingly more. They do the fireworks display, and different things in town. They do look after it. Now, the Blythe Community Betterment Committee is not the Friends of Blythe committee that looks after
Okay,
the
thanks.
flowers and the parks.
Okay.
This is strictly more of a Main Street, like I say, the parades and some of the more annual events.
Okay,
there.
thank you for your clarification.
I wanted some clarification on the Alice Munro, the $3,000 annual elective budget. I didn't recall, is that enough? Did that go up by COLA this year? Just want to know if that's enough.
To Your Worship, that's the consistent amount that we've provided annually.
So it's not a
For-
request, it's not a
yeah,
request
no,
from
it's
them
been-
for that month? Okay.
It's been annually for as long as I've been here, at least. It's been that same $3,000 request.
Yeah, I didn't know if they requested more or they were what.
So based on my
We up to
quick math here, so
39 or
you have, you've allocated 3,950, which would leave you with $2,050 unallocated.
Can we add 500 to the food share, at least?
Go ahead.
Through your, just on that comment, I'd much rather see it stay as a line item that as, like say, the community betterment or someone else steps up. I know we've kind of gone past it. We've required them to have their amounts in by November. But that doesn't seem to have been, the case in some of these, so they're going to come forward anyway, or when the actual funds come up, or the actual events come up, so I would like to see it just stay as an item that it would be council's decision or at discretion as to if someone came forward and required funding, that we would have that 2,500, rather than adding to the existing ones, more to the existing ones we already have.
Okay, so what, could you just tell us what we're up to now then?
So it depends on whether, like, council wants to incorporate Councilor Palmer's change. So if you do not, then you're at that $3,950 total, leaving you with $2,050 left. And then basically if you added the $500 to the North Huron Community Food Share, then basically just take $500 off that total.
Okay.
There's a huge need with the food share. We gave 2,000 last year.
So,
You know, I'm
so
not
how be we have a vote on it, and those in favor of giving them the extra 500, if I could just see your hands?
Well, so you need movers and seconders here.
Well, I just wanna get this.
What I will do is I will incorporate it in the draft motion. If council does not want to do that, you just defeat the motion and then you'd, or you'd not move the motion and then you deal with it that way.
Reeve, I have an idea. To Councilor Palmer's point, I do agree with him. I think the food share is one of the biggest donations we could have. But then, in line with what Councilor Palmer said, or Faulkner said, if there was a request that came through next summer, for example, from the food share program, we would have the money to donate additional funds to them at that point, right? So just maybe a compromise position that we leave the donations as they are, but because it doesn't preclude from giving, say, another $1,000 to our way through the year if we get a follow-up request.
Yeah, you just wouldn't be able to allocate more than that $2,000 annual cap.
No. Okay. Okay, so go, I'll let you read it.
Yep, so without the additional 500, here would be your potential motion, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby approves the following donation requests. Blythe Community Betterment Committee, $500. Huron County Plowmen's Association, $150. Elementary School Fair, $300. Belgrave Playground Project, $1,000. North Huron Community Food Share, $1,000. And Northern Huron Connection Center, $1,000. And further, that the Alice Munro Festival continue to be funded $3,000 through the economic development budget.
Okay. May I have a mover? Counselor Van Henderson, seconder? Counselor Wright? All in favor? Carried. Okay.
So then the next proposed motion there deals with your capital decision listing. So again, if you don't want to make changes to the capital budget decision listing, so you're basically your P1 projects, you would adopt that motion as presented. If you wanted to make amendments, you would you would pass a motion as amended to include the following amendments. So based on things flagged related to capital, at that point in time, there was only one, which was the inclusion of the Riverside Park Master Plan as a potential amendment. But just because someone did not flag it at the time does not mean you've lost your opportunity to. You can add things or amend things now as well.
Okay.
So I'd like to propose an amendment to the capital plan that we add $5,000 for an update to the parks master plan. That's a fairly small amount. I think we can fund that out of taxation. And then also the addition of the refurbishment of the pickleball courts to the capital plan, so that we spend the $60,000 we have well. And I think that can be paid for out of reserves. I think staff made a lot of conservative decisions in the budgeting process, which I understand, but I think that's going to probably end up with a lot of surplus money left transferred into reserves at the end of this year. So I think we won't be spending money we don't have, even though we're taking out of reserves.
Just read it.
Just bear with me here.
And did Anybody have anything else here I want to,
I had a question regarding this.
yes, go ahead.
They have they have wished that they would, how do we deal with their fundraising? Because they plan to, so if it's all paid for, then they don't need to. How's that work?
Yeah, so haven't really had any special correspondence with them, but yeah, I think that would be the case, that they were potentially gonna fundraise if they needed to, but the pressure is that if the Alice Munro funding isn't used up, then it's gone, right?
Vance Fund.
Sorry, the Vance Fund, yeah, so, yeah, so.
I know there's a time here.
Let's go ahead, Councillor Van Henderson.
Thank you, Reeve. If there is any money going to the pickleball tennis court like that, like it's a municipal asset, then there should be money set aside for the Belgrave Playground as well, because they are fundraising like crazy right now. And they need a lot of money to make it up to accessible standards by 2025. So if we are considering a pickleball field, then we also need to consider the playground in Belgrave.
Just a question, is there any firm numbers from the Belgrave Playground?
Yeah, in their letter it said between $200,000 and $300,000.
Oh, right, yes, that letter you're referring to as well. Well, if someone wants to propose a friendly addition to my amendment.
Yeah, so basically, as of right now, you have a mover of a motion, you'd be looking for a seconder. But Councilor Wright has moved a motion that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to incorporate the capital budget decision listing into the second draft of the 2024 budget as amended as follows, to include the Riverside Park Master Plan and to include the Wingham Tennis Court / Pickleball Court refurbishing project. So that you have a mover of that, you'd be looking for a seconder.
Yes, sir. Deputy Faulkner? All in favor? All in favor?
That's a tough one.
Carried.
So, I guess if that is all the direction you want to provide on capital, then you can move on to operating.
Reeve?
But
Yeah, what happened to
I thought that was going to be amendment.
Anita's?
Needed some amendment
Thoughts?
on that was an,
Oh, yeah, so that was the motion on the floor. So you can deal with it through another motion as well. But basically, that motion passed with what was in there.
okay. Okay, do you have a,
Well, it was more of a question on how, like, they're fundraising as well, and you just don't want to pay for everything if they're going ahead with this, like, they'll stop. So somehow, you can give a bigger grant, well, not as a grant, yeah, I don't know how you do it, but, so it's more of a technical thing if we went down that line.
Well, generally, my recommendation is anyone who's providing funding for a municipal asset, there should be a funding agreement with them for how those things work, because basically we're acquiring that asset after. I don't know if the CEO has other thoughts on it, but generally you should have funding arrangements with these entities for how charitable donation receipts are issued and all those kinds of things. So similar to when the committee was established to fund the when council was considering moving to the museum, right? You had terms of reference established and who was going to issue donation receipts and all that. But I'd defer to the CEO for that one.
I think just in terms of what you could consider is directing staff to bring back a fundraising policy for council's consideration that would establish the you know, how the fundraising is done, what the fundraising looks like, et cetera, so that everything's covered, to make sure everything gets addressed. So just a suggestion.
Go ahead, Councillor Van Henderson, then I'll go to Deputy Reeve, please.
My issue is with the Belgrave community area is leased out to the Belgrave Community Board, so they are doing very well on themselves, and they're doing the best they can. The community is very helpful to them. How would that work for them if they have to go through staff or council for a fundraising policy? Would that be the same, or?
Yeah, through you, Reeve, just in terms of, so the fundraising policy, and I don't know at this point what it would actually
No.
look like, because we need to put our mind to it, but, you know, it would, you know, if a community is raising money for a project, you know, some parameters in there in terms of, council will consider, you know, a cap, let's say, to a certain dollar amount for a particular project, or you could set it up in terms of, yeah, I think, you know, in terms of looking at how much a community group and organization raises, and then, you know, what you want to put forward. And I think about the Town Hall Theater here. This was done through a group of individuals, private individuals through volunteer work, and they raised money. That money was received by the municipality, and then that money was used to refurbish the space. I wasn't directly involved in that, but if there was some, and I don't know if this was the case, but let's say they had a little bit of a shortfall, they wanted to put some additional lighting up and they had a shortfall, then you as a council could then say, well, we'll pay for that. Like, you could then decide what things you want to pay for, potentially.
Okay.
You could, I don't know at this point, but certainly we can bring that back for you in draft form, and you can have a look at that. And then you can give some direction as far as, so in terms of the playground committee, you know, council you can decide now in terms of how you want to allocate it. You can, I don't want to say do nothing, but basically wait and see how much they fundraise, and then decide whether or not you want to look at that point, you'd be taking money out of reserves to finance any of that. And then also in terms of the policy, so.
I wouldn't make it harder for anybody who does fundraising to get into that they need to do another step before they can fundraise or say how their funds are allocated. That's my issue with the whole fundraising policy.
I think you'd have some criteria that subject to this, and this, so that you have a committee, you're raising money, et cetera. If you've done all these things, then we will consider providing you with some financial
Extra money.
support,
Okay,
potentially.
Yeah.
Then you have a clear project. You have a clear, you've got your dollar figure, you've got all these things in place.
Yeah.
And once you have all that in place, bring that to us as a council, and then we can make that determination.
Okay.
It's just a suggestion.
Deputy Reeve, please.
Yeah, maybe someone on the panel here can set me straight on, we seem to have three different processes involved. Who actually owns the playground? Is there a playground committee, or does North Huron own the playground? First and foremost, I would like to know.
Well, it's North Huron owns it, and the committee sort of administers the arena and the hall and that.
So then, the upgrade to accessibility of a playground then would fall onto the municipality. If the municipality owns the playground, we have to bring it up to standards, as same as we would have to do in the Wingham swing sit down by the ball diamonds or any park that North Huron owns. We are legislated to bring them up to 2026. I'm only saying that because in Blythe, North Huron doesn't have a playground. It's the Lions Club and they were responsible for bringing that up to par. They didn't come to council looking for, the ability to fundraise or asking for donations to the park. If it falls onto the the responsibility of municipality, that should have already been done. I mean, we're getting close to 2026. We've done the ramp out front here. We've done the washrooms at the fire hall. That should have been on our docket to bring our parks up to, so I'm just wondering why we've got 3 different processes for our parks. It may not be their problem to deal with. It could be ours.
Yeah, I think we fell behind in that one, but they want to help, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I understand that, but I'm just saying that we should have been, I'm just,
Yeah,
why
you're right there.
it's not in the budget and why it hasn't been dealt with prior.
We weren't thinking there.
Okay, Carson has something to share here, please.
Oh, well, I just have the draft motion drafted in relation to what the CAO has suggested. And I guess in regard to accessibility, you have tons of assets that are nowhere near accessible. It's not like, I guess I just want to clarify that it's not like we just forgot this park. It's just pretty much every asset you have does not meet accessibility right now. There's substantial work to be done in regard to accessibility. So yeah, I just wanted to make that clarification. I have a motion drafted here based on the CAO's potential option he has provided you, because clearly there is a need to establish some sort of parameters around these fundraising groups. So a fundraising policy is probably the way to do that. But for council's consideration, it would be that the council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to prepare a draft fundraising policy for council's consideration. And then basically that would dictate your next steps with groups like the Belgrave Playground project and any further ones you might encounter in the future.
Okay, with that, could we have a mover? Councillor Palmer, seconder? Councillor Wright? All in favor? Carried.
May I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Can we still adjust that previous motion then to include the Belgrave Playground, or doesn't that make much sense if we're looking at a new fundraising policy?
Maybe I'll let.
The one where the
To include it in the second draft of the budget, that one?
no, in the motion that Councillor Palmer and Councillor Wright,
So, yeah, which is,
that's for the budget then, eh?
yeah, so like the motion that was adopted to include Riverside Park Master Plan, the Wingham Tennis Court and Pickleball Court refurbishing project in the second draft of the budget. So that one is passed, you can't make changes to that. My recommendation would be you pass another motion then with that same direction, if that's what you wanted to do as council to include it.
Yes, question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just because that motion was exclusive of fundraising by the pickleball club. That was a motion for the township to go ahead with the refurbishing of the court, not including the pickleball. It had nothing to do with the pickleball club. There was no fundraising involved in that.
That's correct.
It
The
was the
motion,
asset,
the
yeah.
motion you passed would be, and I'll read it back here. The motion passes that the council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to incorporate the capital budget decision listing into the second draft of the 2024 budget as amended as follows, to include the Riverside Park Master Plan and to include the Wingham Tennis Court / Pickleball Court refurbishing project. So those would be funded by the Township of North Huron. In the second draft. That would include, obviously, the advance funds, and then however staff feel it could be best be funded through reserves or potentially taxation, but you'll see something in the second draft of the budget that includes those two projects as part of your capital.
Great. Go ahead.
It's bothersome because the group wanted to fundraise. And if we, we've obviously gone through that, passed it, now we're gonna pay for it, they can have fun waiting for it to happen. Like, we have to be careful, and it's really complicated, is how do we help do something, but they wanna fundraise, we don't wanna ignore that, because that's valuable to them and to the project.
Yeah, through you, but I agree with Councillor Palmer's point, and support. I think it is a great idea to have people fundraise and help and all those things. And you certainly don't want to make decisions that would dissuade people from doing that. The one issue, of course, is the Vance Fund money, which has put a time restriction on it. I think the potential. I think while I support donating money to the Belgrave campground, I wonder, or playground, I wonder if we're just a bit early for that, because the pickleball tennis courts was a project which was on the books, so we could go ahead and fund it because we had known cost and known amounts and stuff like that. So I wonder if we're just a step too early to do things with the Belgrave playground. You said, Councillor, they're looking to open it in 2025?
Well, it has to
that
be
correct?
accessible by 2025, 2026, yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder if,
They need to raise a lot of money, so that's why they're already working
yeah,
towards it.
so I wonder if the best way forward is to establish this policy, and then it sounds like the timing would be right from a year from now to see how much money they've raised and what the shortfall is, and do that in the next year's budget.
But wasn't it said that, Reeve, that the tennis court, yes, has been on the docket, but not the pickleball? Wasn't it taken off? Because we just had the group come and talk to us about it. We never gave consent to doing it. You know, it's in our minds, obviously, but
I think the refurbishment is the same amount, whether it's tennis courts or pickleball. It's just the way you paint the courts. Basically, you can lay out pickleball courts on top of the tennis courts if you want to, but the cost wouldn't be any different.
So independent of council providing further direction on capital or reconsideration of anything on capital, you would move on to your operating decision listing.
so Reeve?
Yes,
would it
go ahead.
Would it be okay with others that we put off the Belgrave playground equipment to perhaps next year, and then let them have their way as far as and get the fundraising policy going, and let them have at it, and then we can step in at a certain point. Okay? Okay.
You're fine with that? Yeah. CEO is fine with that, it's perfect, okay.
So again, your next, you've worked your way through capital for changes you want to see for version 2 of the budget, and you've provided direction for staff to prepare a fundraising policy. So now you got your operating budget decision listing. So basically, things that were flagged for discussion were the economic development officer position, the economic development summer student position. So Councillor Palmer mentioned item 38 within that slide, which was the economic development officer's summer student, but also advertising and promotion. So I just want to clarify that I'm assuming you're talking about the economic development officer and the student piece. The cemetery grass cutting summer students, the full-time ECE and childcare staffing costs, the policing costs, and then it was also noted about staff attraction and retention. So those are basically the things that you flagged. You can go through them individually, you can go through them as a whole. It's up to you as council what direction you want to provide to staff on those. Or if you require any clarification on any of those, I'm sure staff would be available to answer questions.
So could we go to the first one, and
Yep, so your first one was the economic development officer position.
go ahead, Deputy Reed, please.
Thank you. Through you, Reeve. The Economic Development Department, I thought was an essential part of the growth of the township. With the vacancy in that department, we still have a current member staff that's working in the ECDev and community development. I'm just wondering if that position could be expanded and put through either, either the staff retention or the professional development portion of council's decision, in order to keep staff. If that position could just be expanded and education purposes be available to the current staff that we have to partially fill some of the duties that are currently not done because of the vacancy, and rather than hiring a full-time another portion in the meantime, to see whether we require that position, that it just be expanded to be included in the duties of the staff that are left. Just don't know whether that would be.
Go ahead, I saw a hand move over here.
Well, I didn't suggest it as the retention part to be a separate, like to be a duty of somebody's. It was brought up with the CAO's position or office, and I take it as if you're hiring, right now, if we do nothing, anybody you're trying to hire, you're gonna, increase the pot a little bit just to attract them, and then you've got to retain them by whatever, I'm not sure. But I brought it up is because we have to tighten our belt, folks. Like just because it says 3.3%, well, now it's gone up, well, probably up. We have to be careful with our money. It went up crazy last year, and we have no idea what the county's going to do. So we have to be very, very cautious with our money. And, it's proven that we're not retaining people. Well, obviously lots, but you're here because you want to be here. And then there's still a bunch of people that have been leaving through the years. And so whether we're really retaining them, I don't, like, what are we doing? I don't know, it doesn't help. So I was just keeping it as a separate, I just brought it up because I thought we should just talk about it. Do we want to do this or do we not? We want it part of the hiring process and keeping people. That was all the reason. That was the only reason.
Deputy Reeve and then Councillor Wright.
Thank you, through you. Yeah, I'm fully aware it wasn't the intention or the comments that the councillor made, but I wasn't taking them into consideration. Those were my comments.
Okay.
I was making a comment outside of his. I'm allowed to do that. So it's not in retention of his comments. And I never, if they were listening, I wasn't adding anyone. I wasn't hiring anyone. I wasn't adding anybody's any more costs to the municipality. Mm-hmm. I was in concurring with this position that possibly that could be retained with the people that we already have left. Mm-hmm. I wasn't adding anyone new. Where that sentiment came from, I don't know.
Okay, Councillor Wright and then Councillor Van Henderson, please.
Yeah, so a possible solution, I think we're actually discussing two different topics at once.
Yeah.
Because the one topic is, do we budget for an economic development officer? And then the other one is, do we actually rehire for the position, right? So what I would propose as a path forward is we leave it in the budget to hire an economic development officer, but we would want a discussion in council before we actually proceed with replacing and rehiring that position. I see a lot of value with that position. I really do. I've always just in the back of my head thought, with the size of our municipalities, it doesn't make sense to have a full-time position, or should it be more of a service that the planning office from the county provides, some kind of a deal like that. So that's just a suggestion for the economic development officer. For the full-time summer student, I just want to ask, was there any, it's, believe it or not, been a while since I've been in high school, but the co-op positions used to be quite popular, and I just wonder if there was any thought of working with the high school to put a co-op position for an economic development assistant as opposed to hiring on for a summer student.
We've explored those options before. Generally, we haven't had much luck. Most people kind of tend to, in high school, they want to either they plan to be a lawyer or an engineer or a doctor, right? No one necessarily kind of floats towards municipal government. So that's kind of, I guess, the rationale behind the position is let's get people interested in local government. No better way to do that than with young people who are trying to figure out what they want to do for a career. But we've certainly had co-op students in the past. We've looked for co-op students recently, and it just haven't necessarily been there. I don't know if you have
No, I
more.
have nothing further to add. I think you covered it, just in terms of, so we have in the past, I mean, and we have in the past reached out to the high school in terms of looking for individuals who are interested in placements any time of the year. And there's just not so there's two things. One is, the one time we reached out, all of their individuals already had placements. They had more opportunities for placements than they had students looking for placements. But then the other thing too is in terms of not knowing and understanding local government, and not, just not knowing what opportunities exist in the field, whether it's in public works or rec or wherever. So the idea here is would be to have, one of the items in the strategic plan talks about youth and getting youth engaged and involved. So this was identified as a potential opportunity to start that conversation and to facilitate that, but, yeah.
Go
Thank you,
ahead,
Reeve. Yes.
Councillor Henderson,
Yeah,
please.
I agree with Councillor Wright, like the temporary, or not the temporary, the student position. I think it's the community engagement coordinator is a very complicated job, and I think that it asks too much of her to assist a student to do all kinds of jobs for her or with her, and I don't see the value, the added value that person will bring to the municipality. And yeah, I think it's important to have an economic development officer. Maybe we can share somebody, because nobody wants to, we've looked at that before, there's no part-time jobs that people want to do for economic development, so maybe there's something that we can share with another municipality, or I don't know.
Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
If we did what Councillor Wright suggested and kept it in at this point in time, is like, okay, but as long as we can discuss it down the road, so we're discussing it now, are we gonna discuss it in council at a future date? Because I think we need to. I'm not in favor of it. Dimitri left us in really good hands, and we do not have a whole pile of land to deal with. So that part of the job is diminishing quickly. You think about the cost of that department, and is it cost effective? Nope. The taxation we're going to receive for anything future? Nope. So we have to think money all the time. The job is less and less, and the community coordinator, that person can maybe take some more courses, get some more education, and about ECDev, and maybe they could fill in the shoes, and of course our CAO can do it. Just got to save money. As far as an assistant for Denise, no, I don't see the value there.
So yeah, council's basically discussed the first two items, being the economic development officer and the economic development summer student. So at this point, I'd be looking for a motion if you want to remove either of those items, you would want to put it in a motion, because both those items are included in the version of the budget that you just saw, right? So if you don't want to do anything and you want to keep those in there, then you don't take any action. If you want to take some action and remove something, now would be the time to do that through motion. So,
Okay, does somebody want to come forward with a motion?
Yes, I will. So, thinking back, when we hired when we hired an economic development officer, it was partway through the year, correct? And I wasn't here, but I believe council passed a motion at that time, freeing up funding, for that, so that we could go ahead with that hire. I believe that's the way it worked. So if we did eliminate this from budget, then we could obviously add it back into budget again, once we got once we decided what to do with that position, I think, right? So at this time, I'll put a motion forward that we.
so I guess and maybe it's a question for Director Towns, but you would almost need to have that determination, like, before you finalize your budget, right? So you're looking at January or February.
Well, no, what I mean is several, like when we hired the human resources coordinator, right? That was partway through a year. We didn't have that money in the budget already, but council gave approval to go ahead and hire one partway through the year, right?
We would have had.
Yeah, so Director Towns will likely speak to this. So when we put the money in for that budget and when council moved forward with approving the budget, we only budgeted for a partial year. But we did have the money in the budget.
Okay, you
but
did
we
budget
didn't
ahead of
budget
time.
for 12
Okay.
months. We budgeted for, I don't know, 8 months maybe, whatever the time period was. So we did have the money in the budget,
Oh, you
but
did?
not
Okay.
for a full year's salary, because we knew that the individual was not going to be starting with us on January 1st.
Okay.
So, for clarification,
Okay,
unless Director
so-
Towns has anything to add, but.
So I guess the motion I'll put forward, trying to capture what council's discussed here, is that the summer student to assist the community engagement coordinator be removed from budget, and also staff provide a review of the economic development coordinator position prior to posting for that vacancy.
Just when Carson's typing that up,
Good.
we'll go. Okay, he's good?
Yep, so basically your motion would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to remove the economic development summer student from version 2 of the operating budget, and further that staff be directed to conduct a review of the economic development officer position prior to recruiting for the position.
And should it be prior to completion of the budget?
So based on this right now, the wages for the economic development officer are there, so really, it doesn't need to
Okay.
in that case.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, a mover, seconder, Counselor Palmer. All in favor? Carried.
Can you just bear with me here? So then the next items flagged would be your cemetery grass cutting students.
Go ahead, Deputy Reed, please.
Yeah, I'm just curious, the reasoning behind stopping with the contract. And then we have two line items, the wages to reapply those wages to cutting of the grass there, and $28,000 for a lawnmower to do the cutting. I just wonder, is that a cost savings, or are we just making a knee-jerk reaction to a one-year contract, like, I'm not sure, is that a plus or a minus? Are we adding more to the budget by not having it contracted, or are we saving money by?
I guess if I could ask Mr. Fortney to come up, but I thought it would be a saving by not having the contractor, but maybe I read something wrong in it
Just going that we thought it was a savings
to start, but last year.
getting the
grass
contract,
grew well.
so.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Deputy Reeve Faulkner, yes, we're estimating a $10,000 to $15,000 savings by doing it this way, with the 2 students and the lawnmower.
Yep, go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Reeve. I know it was costing a fair amount per cutting of this year. Were they cutting, was anyone monitoring when cutting should occur? So, to reduce the numbers.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Palmer. So we did monitor and maintain with the contractor on a weekly basis. This summer, as you are aware, was very wet summer, so we cut almost every single week. If we do it ourselves, we'll have even more control over how often and segmenting the different cemetery areas so that we may not have to be cutting as frequently. But with a summer student, we'd be engaging with them for at least 16 to 20 weeks, depending on the length of the season. And we would just be reallocating those staff to other grass cutting jobs throughout the municipality. And that would be our intention.
And it's, sorry, through you, Reeve, and it's still cheaper, even though the company cut the East Wanash Park for free. Now it's gonna cost, what was it, 10,000 or something?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, yes, we're still looking overall at a savings of $10,000 to $15,000 from 2023.
Yeah, and I think when we brought that in last year, I think we thought we were going to be looking at it for a year and see if there's savings in that or not. I think maybe it was Mr. Wilson was here at that time. I forget now, but I remember that. But so that we take.
Well, so if council wants to keep the cemetery students in the budget, no action is required. If council wants to see amendments, then you would do so now.
Okay. So it looks like it's going to be a cost saving, so, and that's, I'm sure, what we're all looking for here. So do we just carry on, leave on? Okay, thank you, clerk.
So your next one is the full-time ECEs, the 2 full-time ECE conversions, and like the childcare staffing costs was your next item flagged.
Okay, somebody flag that. Go ahead, Councillor Van Henderson, please.
Yes, thank you, Reeve. I am wondering if we can take this money out of the budget or out of the cost and take out the money from reserves. And then when we know how much money we are getting back from the government, put that money back into the costs. And then I would also like staff to write a letter to the federal government how they are doing this. They're mandating a policy and a raising and a money increase by January without giving any further notices of how much money we will receive. And yeah, that we are in budget times and that we don't want to up our taxes because of some unknown amounts.
So just,
Well, so I guess, yeah, so Councillor Van Henderson asked a question of whether you could take it out first, so you might want to let Director Towns
yeah.
indicate
Mr.
whether.
Towns, he's coming to this.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Van Henderson, there is some money in daycare reserves. If council wishes, we can use that to net zero the daycare budget. And if we do receive additional funding, we would only transfer what was physically required to net zero that account, if that would be sufficient.
Look at that.
Well, I would like that. It would help our taxes a lot. And we are not really using money that was set aside. It's just moving from a grant from X to Y.
We'll just let,
Through the Reeve, in addition, Councillor Van Hittersum, if you wish, you could put a cap so that we could use, say, $100,000 or $150,000, or physically net zero it. You do have some options. Just please keep in mind, if we do not receive additional funding, we are depleting reserves as well, right?
Yeah,
Thank you.
but the additional money was promised to us.
Through the Reeve Heifer, yes, we just don't know what that number is, unfortunately.
Okay.
go ahead to Councillor Wright.
Just a question from the need to add these two full-time positions. I asked the question before, but maybe I'll ask it differently. What would be the impact if we didn't add these two full-time positions? Like, what is the driving need? What would the impact be to our childcare operations if we didn't add these positions? Would we have to look after less kids? You know, tangibly, what the difference, what the impact would be?
Okay. Did,
No, there.
oh, she isn't there. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Through the Reeve to Councillor Wright, not my department, but there is a lack of ECEs and childcare providers. There's 150, I believe, if not more, participants or children or families waiting to get in due to the lack of staffing because there's sharing ratios that are required. In addition, as included within the proposed 2024 draft budget, is funds allocated to further to look into other options within Goliath as well, which is going to require additional staffing to bring in additional users of the program.
Deputy Reeve, you had your hand up?
Yeah, just it was reported by the head of that department that they were currently under. We're not at capacity because of the ratio of ECEs to children. So we're not running it. These two would help us get us up to capacity and take some of that load of the 150 that are waiting to get in, because we don't have room, or not that we don't have room, but we just don't have the staffing for it. So, and I believe the new funding model was supposed to be at a full 100% of your capacity was the allocations that they were going to give you. So it should weigh out. If we hire enough to get to capacity, they were going to pay us to capacity.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Mr. Towns wanted a amount put in for that, so I would like to add the $150,000.
Okay, just let the clerk. No other comments from anyone here? Just wait for our clerk to write this up.
So Councillor Van Hittersum, if this isn't the motion you're looking for, just let me know, but the motion will be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to fund the two new full-time ECE positions through a maximum of $150,000 from the Early Childhood Education Reserves, as well as any grant funding received, and further that Council directs staff to prepare a letter to the federal government explaining the importance of providing detailed information on the funding model to service providers for budgetary purposes.
I meant that if we receive those funds, that they go back into the reserves for the childhood, early childcare services. It's not adding on, but it's borrowing the money from reserves, actually.
Right. Yeah, and so you may, depending on how this funding works, like you might not be able to put it into reserves. It might have to offset your operating costs based on the conditions. But basically, the grant funding, if you receive the grant funding, that'll pay your wages.
Yeah.
If you need extra, up until $150,000, you would then pull from reserves. But as Director Town said, you'd only take out what you need.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Deputy Reeve?
Yeah, there's no wording in there about removing this item from the budget. If we're going to do it from reserves, it won't need to be added to the budget. So there should be something in there saying there's remove
So it still needs to be reflected in the budget. It's just not paid for through taxation. It's paid for through reserves, and Director Towns will make those changes. You don't need to remove the item completely from the budget.
Not the item, but just the amount, then that would come off of the tax base, because it's coming out of reserves and not the, so if
Yep.
it was still in there, it would still be added to the,
Yeah,
the budget.
and so based on that motion, that'll be captured in version 2.
Okay, thank you. I'll second that.
Okay, second. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
And the letter to the government will be, okay, thank you.
That's been documented,
Yeah,
thanks.
thank you.
So then the next item flagged is your policing costs.
Leasing costs, okay.
And so it might be, I don't know, not to put, not to put Director Towns on the spot, but I know he's provided you guys with an explanation of how policing costs are recovered before, but I think it might be of benefit to have that information as a starting point.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Towns, if we could have you, thank you.
Thank you, Reeve. Thank you, Clerk Lamb. As we've had this conversation many, many times, policing is provided as a municipal service. We receive one tax bill for the township of North Huron as a whole. That includes all 3 wards based on a property count, and the bill is levied based on those numbers. As it is a municipal service, we are required to levy municipal services through taxation based on current weighted assessments. So I understand the significant increase for 2 of the 3 wards. However, those are provincially legislated taxation laws that we are required to follow as municipal staff.
Yeah.
Sorry, not the answer you were looking for.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, definitely not, and I knew that, Chris. I'm just wondering, it's not fair. Do we want to be fair with the wards? Like, it's not the way it is. Like from 145,000 to over 300,000. And the police aren't there more. If they were more, then, okay, you're getting your policing, you're getting it. But they're not. And it's just the fairness. You got everybody that talks to me is grumbling like crazy, and I'm sure with Councillor Van Hittersum, same. And what do we do with it? How do we get that fairness factor? East Wawanash taxation was over 20%. Just look at any of the tax bills, it was over 20%, even though it was only 8-ish for the municipality. When you added up all the other things, it turned out to be over 20. And I think Blythe's was definitely over 10, Crowding probably 12%. Now, Wingham does not have the luxury of pulling money out of their police bank, right? They're going to be paying.
It's going to look different this year for
Yeah,
sure.
they're going to be paying. So, it's people and buildings that need policing. Land doesn't. Not in the same way. So, to use land assessment, farm assessment, just doesn't make sense for us.
But I know I'm sure, go ahead.
Yeah, Reeve, so I understand the policing cost was a recent hit. And that was upsetting to a lot of people. But just from an impact assessment and tax payment perspective, if you wanted to talk about fair, what are the road maintenance costs per user in East Wawanosh versus someone that lives in Blythe or Wingham? They're far higher, right? You can get one person living on an entire block of road, and we're maintaining and graveling and dusting an entire block of road for potentially one person, one family in East Wawanosh, right? So, I think there's puts and takes in any municipality, right? If you look at some services, Some areas are gonna use them more than others, but if you look at other services, it's gonna be different people that use them higher, right? So, I mean, that's just my thought, that on the net, it washes out. That, yeah, policing is more of a Blythe and Wingham thing, but there's a lot of services that we provide, that do benefit, East Wawanosh more than Blythe and Wingham.
Yeah, through you, Reeve. Our road maintenance is a far cry from the way it was 15 years ago, when we were just East Wawanosh. No, but it's a huge point. So maybe there's one family on a road, but lots of times there's 2 families, 3 families, and it is not maintained. That grader does not go down that road very often. And
I'm sure we still have standards we have to keep up to, you know.
oh, no, it's when people start screaming because of the potholes.
Yeah, I know, yeah, that was in the previous councils before we even got in.
Oh, yeah,
Here,
yeah,
I
yeah.
know.
True
Go
enough.
ahead, Deputy Reed, please.
It's curious, and we're kind of splitting hairs here. The recreation department is split up between the Blythe Arena and the Wingham Arena and the Belgrave Arena. The PUC is kind of the Blythe Water, Wingham Water. I'm just curious why there was not a line item that specifies how much it costs for the shed and for the East Walnash. That it just gets hidden in the other two. It's not a line item. Like everyone, if we're going to give reasons to pick apart each department, each ward, then, why isn't that a line item as well, that all of the costs get shown as the Councilor Wright says there, well, what costs what, who, and what. So we're picking things apart about this costs more here and this costs more over there, but it's not fairly taken apart either. So.
But these are the numbers that were given as Director Towns gave us, and all these people are going to be running into the same thing. It's not going to change over different areas, so it's one of those things that this policing, it's costly. We know that. We know infractions happen everywhere, so.
Reeve, one last point, and then I'll be quiet.
Okay.
In 2022, 145,000. It changed when the agreement changed this year in '23. That's when it changed. So it's not like it's been around for a long time. It just occurred. And if something big happened in Blythe and the fee went up or the price went up, there'd be people here complaining. Or in Wingham, there'll be people complaining. So it's just our little point here that there's something out of whack.
Yeah.
And we have so many people in our municipality complaining, or sorry, in our ward complaining. And they don't understand it. They don't see the police. Most people don't see the police ever.
Well, maybe it's time that we get Jason Unen to come in and
They
make
don't
a
need to.
presentation
They don't
to
need
us.
to.
Why?
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry, I spoke up. What were you?
Jason Unen will come in and we can get him in and.
Discuss
and
the situation?
and
Yeah.
Discuss.
Yeah,
That's,
that'd be nice.
okay. Okay, so we'll do, okay, so that just carries on.
Yeah, like there's there's no decision to be made about policing short of you doing enhancements, right? And right now, basically, there's no enhancements for any of the wards, which is why you have the numbers you have for that policing contract. So independent, yeah. So there's nothing
go
to be
ahead.
decided really
Yeah,
with
go
this
ahead.
one. So the only other thing that was flagged was just a general comment about staff attraction and retention. I don't know if Councilor Palmer had flagged that one, so I don't know if that was covered through your previous discussions or whether there was anything
was.
further on that. But basically, those are the items you've flagged as we went through the presentation within the operating budget. But again, you're not limited to those things you flagged at the time if there was anything else that you wanted to discuss. Prior to version 2 coming back in January, now would be the time.
Was there anything, one last time to go around here, or just if anything came to your attention? Not seeing anything, Clerk Lamb, so we can go on to the next.
Yep. So then your last one is the pre-budget approval request. So as Director Towns explained in the slide deck, there's 2 projects that require pre-budget approvals prior to the budget being adopted. So that's the museum deaccessioning and the continuation of the implementation of Laserfish. So there's a draft motion there for council's consideration.
Okay. So could you read the motion there, please?
That the Council of the Township of North Huron here gives pre-budget approval to the following budget items: continuation of the museum deaccessioning and continuation of the implementation of Laserfish.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a mover? Deputy Reeve, seconder, Councillor Wright. Any questions, discussions, or I guess we just carry on. They know how they're going to vote now, right? And all in favor? Carried.
So then you get to move to agenda item 5.
Number 5, next meeting, budget meeting is scheduled for Friday, January 12th, 2024 at 9 a.m. in the North Huron Council Chambers, 271 Francis Street. Confirmatory bylaw, that the bylaw 94/2023, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by the Council of the Township of North Huron, the December 19th, 2023 meeting, be introduced, read, a first, second, third, and final time, be signed by the Reeve and clerk and engrossed in the bylaw book. May I have a mover? Deputy Reeve, Councillor Van Hitterson. All in favor? Carried. Adjournment, that the Council of the Township of North Huron agrees that there being no further business before the council, the meeting be hereby adjourned at 12:06. May I have a mover? Councillor Whitfield, Councillor Wright. All in favor? Carried. Well, I want to thank all of you for your time, and again, especially to staff helping out there. That was really good. Appreciate the work that you did with this, and looking forward to our next meeting, and looking at what you're bringing back to us. So January